Got the Scomo t-shirt on. I thought it would have been in the Powerhouse Museum by now, but we've had cause to use it again. So here we are for Scam of the Week. Airbus Albow. Airbus Albow, we heard at the top half of this week. It was a constant refrain of the right-wing nutjob press, Murdoch press, 2GB, Airbus Albow, the usual town criers, a huge political distraction from the fact that both parties are supporters of genocide in Gaza and refuse to call for a ceasefire, and one of those parties doesn't even have any policies at all. In any case, Airbus Albow, they were boring it up poor old Albo for travelling too much, for fixing up Scomo's mess, this breakdown in relations with China, this giving the bird to your number one customer who buys 40% of your products. Well done, coalition. So Albo was up there repairing that relationship, and it will mean billions of dollars in money coming to Australia. Well done. Albo, of course, Airbus Albow, as they called him, of course, then did his trip to the Pacific, where he continued to repair international relations, which had been devastated by the reign of the coalition government, the most incompetent as well as corrupt government, certainly in my living memory. Billions in trade blown up by pointing the bone at China. PMs travel. That is what they do. PMs travel. This Airbus Albow thing was just a complete mishit from the coalition black arts people that advise them, Cosby Tex, these type of people that advise them on how to rubbish their political adversaries. But, Scomo really, what a joy it was to see Scomo again, pouncing around Israel in a bulletproof vest with Boris Johnson. Both of them had been at a conservative, one of those far-right conservative political action conferences in the UK. And there they were, their guts hanging out, protruding beneath the bulletproof vests in Israel. Now, we noticed in the social media coverage that, in fact, not only were 9 microphones there, but 7 network microphones were there as well. The question is, of course, what were the 2 big government-subsidised 7 and 9 network news teams doing there, filming Scomo in the Middle East? What were they doing on this junket? Well, clearly, the people of Cook, who Scomo is meant to be representing as a backbencher, they weren't funding this trip. He wouldn't have been able to claim this trip. So it's clearly the government of Benjamin Netanyahu funding Scomo's junket with 9 and 7 networks. It's Scomo doing genocide PR. As the death toll went through 10,000 this week, half of them kids almost, bombing them from the air. There is no other side to this argument. Yes, Hamas did bad, but this constant bombing. And there we are, former PM Scomo doing genocide PR. Also to the Airbus Albow narrative, of course, good old Peter Dutton was swanning around India. We don't know who paid for Peter's Indian trip, but we bet he made plenty of noise about nuclear power, even though it is not actually coalition policy, because of course the coalition doesn't have any policies, but it does. It does stand by one rock-solid principle of getting elected. The principle of getting re-elected at any cost. That is what they stand for. Also a contender for Scam of the Week may have been Michaelia Cash, who after the RBA raised interest rates at its meeting this week, Michaelia came out and blamed Albo for the rise in interest rates. Of course, completely disingenuous, and we can appreciate there'll be more of this. The RBA has lifted interest rates less than other rival central banks, other peer central banks rather. They've lifted interest rates less than the UK and the US and so on. They're at least on par. This is a global thing. It's not Albo. The other point is that the biggest spike in inflation, the biggest ramp up in inflation was during Michaelia Cash's own time in government. It had started then, and that was the steepest part of the inflation curve, part of the interest rate curve, part of the and conditioned the interest rate curve to follow. These are global things. These are energy prices. the bond markets globally. It's not about Albo deliberately pushing interest rates up. The other contender, of course, for Scam of the Week is the fossil fuel sector again, because the ATO, the tax office, came out with its annual figures, its tax transparency data. Now, we haven't had a good chance to go through this stuff and to model it into our top 40 tax dodgers annual table, annual chart, and we're going to do that. So you'll be hearing from us next week on Australia's biggest tax dodger, who will get the gong this year, but it's looking like it's going to be ExxonMobil again, huge oil and gas US company. Exxon have done another 15 billion or so in total income and paid zero in tax. These numbers are a bit old. They're 2021 numbers, and we need to go through and see what they've done with taxable income and these kind of things. But suffice to say that a quick look at the top tax dodgers shows foreign-owned multinational companies who we subsidise through things like the diesel fuel rebate. They are the biggest offenders. They are the biggest tax dodgers. Billions are siphoned out of Australia every year to tax havens and to foreign shareholders due to chicanery by tax lawyers and the Big Four. We're going to go through it next week, but undoubtedly this is the biggest scam in the world. We're talking about $500 billion almost a year being siphoned out to tax havens. Trillions sitting in tax havens. So, and meanwhile, there's a cost of living crisis. Something will have to change, obviously. In any case, Scam of the Week, we'll get back to you on the ATO tax stuff, and we'll do our top 40 next week. Scam of the Week must go to our beloved Scomo. It was so wonderful to see him again, and this time in a bulletproof vest, doing a photo shoot in Israel. What terrific stuff that is. Thank you for your support. Like and comment, share in the section below.